What is happening, people? It is Brian Alsruhe, NEVERsate.com, and today I want to jump back to that do or do not series that a lot of you seem to really find helpful, except today I want to cover the bench, because everybody loves the bench. Now, before I jump into it, just remember that these videos are not meant to be super in-depth and get really into the weeds with everything. If you guys need that, you need more explanation of any of these topics, I have entire videos on each and every single one of them throughout my channel. Just search my name and whatever topic you are looking for. However, what these are for is that I'm just gonna go over 10 or 11 points very, very fast, saying do this, don't do that on the bench press, that maybe you could check out when you're rolling out or you're warming up before your bench press workout, or maybe even you're just listening to it in your car as you're driving to the gym. Just get these cues and these ideas in your mind just so it can be the last thing that you hear before you go into your workout. Yeah. Also remember that this list is absolutely not exhaustive whatsoever. There are so many more problems with the bench press than just these 10 or 11 things. These are just things that came right off the top of my head that I see people do all the time that are very, very common, that hopefully you can get these out of the way so you can make much more advanced mistakes, because that seems to be how things go. All right, so the very first thing that I do want you to focus on in the bench press is taking time on your setup. That is the foundation that you're gonna place your beautiful little PR house on, and if you build a bad foundation, then nothing is going to work out after that. You need to spend the time, you need to build a routine, you need to do all the things I've talked about in all my other videos. However, this is one of the biggest things I see people do. They just either rush their setup, or they're lying flat on the bench, or their knees are above their hips, or there's just so many things that are going wrong, okay? So just real quick guideline, not gonna get real in depth here, but things that you need to look at for your setup on the bench press. Number one, your grip position, okay? Most people need to bring their hands in a little bit. Maybe you're a competitive powerlifter and this doesn't apply to you, but most people will get more out of the bench press if they brought their grip in a little bit, so they keep their elbows a little more tucked, they use more muscle grip. There's tons of things that would help out there. Then number two, if their shoulder blades are not retracted before they place them down on the bench, then you are leaving a lot of pounds out there, all right? Those shoulder blades should be completely retracted so that you can be up on your traps in that setup, not on your back. Then number two, that leads us right into the conversation about the arch. Now, I'm not talking about some big gymnast arch or anything like that. All that I'm gonna say about the arch for each individual is that you wanna get to a position where your traps are closer to your butt. You figure that out and you will have the beginnings of your arch. You should be making sure that your hips are above your knees, that your knees are pushing slightly out, that your feet are in a good position so you can actually get some leg drive. All these things are very basic things that I've covered in other things. However, the biggest thing is that you need to spend time on your setup. Do it all of the time the same way so that you build a routine. And then once you've established this routine, don't do anything stupid to let you get out of that game plan. It's always the same no matter what. Big weights, small weights, it's the same. The second thing I want you to do on the bench press is keep that bar on the heel of your hand. The number of people that I see sitting that bar in the palm or up near their calluses or even in the fingers of their hand is so ridiculous. And guys, you are not getting any power there at all. You are not doing yourself any favors whatsoever to get out of poverty bench zone. You really need to think about energy transfer here, and you have bone structure underneath if that bar is sitting on top of the heel of your hand. Any other place than when you go to reverse that motion, you're gonna get a little bit of play, which is pounds off of your top set. So this is a very easy thing to remedy just by simply sliding that bar further down your hand. Now, a lot of people find a ton of success in both the bench press as well as the overhead press using a false grip or suicide grip where they take their thumb off of the bar. Now, that is going to really, you're gonna have to be careful. I mean, you gotta be thinking that you're balancing heavy weights above your head, neck, face, this whole area here without anything. Just be careful. So if you do decide to give it a try, then that is on you, buddy. All that I will say is try to get that bar over top of where you actually have bones in your forearm. That is gonna help you get as much power into that bar from the bench as you can. The third thing that I would really like to see you do on the bench press, because I am so guilty of not doing it, is be far enough away from the J-cups that when you decide to reverse that bar, you do not rocket it right back into those hooks, screwing everything up like I so often do. So I don't bench with spiders. I just don't do it. I literally haven't done since high school. It's not what I'm into. I don't like doing it. The only time I will ever do it is if I think something could potentially go wrong. Otherwise, I set up safety arms and I just go for it myself. But that means that I'm constantly unracking the bar on my own, which oftentimes means that after I get my setup and I keep squishing myself, trying to get my arch higher and higher and higher, I'm sliding the entire time on my traps, which might be potentially moving me more back towards J-cups so that when I reverse that bar, oftentimes I rocket it right back up into those things that you guys have seen a billion times in my videos. Now, at best, if you rocket a bar up into those J-cups and it jerks you around and it is what it is, at best, it distracts you, all right? At worst, it's going to throw that bar out, it can hurt you. There's a lot of things that go wrong, but for you guys, I want to see you slide far enough out so that your eyes are underneath the bar to start. That's typically a good place to go, all right? If when you slide out on the bench at the beginning, if your eyes start out underneath the bar, then typically when you unrack it or you have someone unrack it for you, then you're not gonna run in those J-cups. If you're behind that, I can't guarantee much. The fourth thing I do not want to see you doing on the bench press is unpacking your shoulders when you unrack that bar. A lot of people, when they're trying to get the bar out of the rack, they think of lifting the bar out of the rack, but that's not what you want to do. You want to keep your lats back, you want to keep your shoulder blades retracted, so you think about rowing that bar out of the bar rack, out of the rack, or pulling the bar out of the rack, or even squeezing the bar out of the rack. But the last thing that you want to do is actually lift your shoulders off the bench to get that bar out of the J-cups. If you do that, you've literally ruined everything that you just spent all that time on your setup doing. If your shoulder blades leave and now your back is flat on the bench, you just let a lot of pounds just ran away from you. You're never gonna see those again. Now, a trick that I've showed many times on my channel is that once you have your setup complete, all that you do is lift your hips straight up, and that sticks you kind of in a decline bench position. From there, you can squeeze the bar out of the rack or row the bar out of the rack, and then when you put your hips back down in the same position that you started, the bar will now be out in front and you'll be able to start benching. Now, this does not work nearly as well as having a spotter take the bar out of the rack for you. However, if you're like me or you are forced to work out alone and you don't really have that choice, this is a good option to have. Again, though, it's come from a guy who runs in the J-cups all the time. All right, so the fifth thing that I want to see you doing on the bench press involves breathing and bracing. However, I just did an entire video about that in the last video, and I covered the bench press, so we're not going to talk about that right now. Instead, the fifth thing that I do want to talk about is actually keeping your elbows tucked on the descent. This is a massive problem that I see a lot of people do. So many people, when they are descending with the barbell, are sticking their elbows straight out to the side. Now, number one, that's sticking your shoulders in a pretty terrible position. I'm not saying you're necessarily going to hurt yourself, but you're definitely sticking yourself at higher risk than you would be if you had those elbows tucked. And then number two, you're not using nearly as much strength, muscle groups, you're not involving your delts or triceps nearly as much as you could if you kept those elbows tucked. And then thirdly, and probably the most important reason why you should keep your elbows tucked, is when you're bringing that bar down, you're not only gonna be using your lats for rebound because you actually can push your triceps on top of your lats, get a little bit of rebound effect there, but number three, the biggest thing is when you're pushing back up and you run out of horsepower, because it's going to happen, right there your elbows can flare. Now, if your elbows flare, you get to use more muscle groups, which means you get more horsepower back in the press and that bar can continue moving. Now, if your elbows started out flared, then they have absolutely no real estate to take over, which means you have no power, which means that bar is coming back down to your chest. So keeping your elbows tucked will not only keep you a little bit safer, but it will also help you move more weight on the bench press, both of which are good things. All right, sixth thing that I want you thinking about on the bench press is keeping your bar path the exact same every single time. I can't tell you the number of people who on a set of 6 bench presses will touch their chest in 6 different places. And guys, all that I'll say is that this is gonna be different for every single person. However, you need to figure out what works for you and do it and do it and do it again so that it becomes like almost an instinct, all right? For most people, a bench press will start with the bar above your chin to neck area. You'll bring the bar down to a little bit below your nipple line, then you'll push the bar back up above your chin neck area again. So it doesn't travel in straight lines the way that like a deadlift would. All that I will say is that for most people, most being everyone, you cannot bring the bar too far close to your neck. You don't have any power there and you're sticking your shoulders in a compromised position, and you also can't bring it down too low towards your belly button because again, shoulders compromised and you don't have any power there. You need to be thinking about like pillars on a building and where you can support the most weight and when. So on your next bench day, I would encourage you to record where the bar is actually touching your chest, get pretty close up in there and really see if there's a difference, because that is an easy thing that you can fix that will add pounds to your bench press overnight. The seventh thing that I'd like to see you doing on the bench press actually has to do with a cue. Now, if you guys remember the deadlift do or do not video that I just put out a couple weeks ago, last week something that I just put out, I talked about the cue of pushing the world away instead of picking the bar up and how that makes a massive difference for people. Now, everyone on the bench press is still thinking about just pushing that bar away from them, and I think that is a massive mistake. What is going on inside my head, and this is something I learned many moons ago, and it was such a game changer for me. I do not think about pushing that bar up. I think about lowering that bar down to my chest. Once it touches my chest and I go to reverse motion, I literally think about that bar being a static object and I am pushing my back into the bench, almost like I'm trying to push the bench into the ground or my body away from the bar, not the bar away from my body. It sounds like it's an absolutely nothing thing, but it absolutely will give you a better use of your lats in a more strategic and just stable kind of way. You have to give it a try and see what's going to work best for you. But this is a cue that has made a massive difference in when it comes to me moving big weights on the bench. Give it a try. The 8th thing that I think you should be doing on the bench is using leg drive. Now, leg drive is very, very elusive and a lot of people talk about it, but hardly anyone explains what it actually is. Now, luckily, I have a couple videos that I've done on nothing but leg drive. Search my name plus leg drive and you're gonna see it, all right? There's plenty of information out there, so I'm not gonna get in the depth right here. All that I'll say is when most people are thinking of leg drive, what they do is drive their feet into the ground, which raises their butt off the bench, and all that's doing is attempting to turn their bench press into a decline bench so that they can use more muscles and push more weight, but that is the opposite of what you want to do. Instead, if you had that good arch like I talked about, then your traps are gonna hold you in place because your legs are going to try to slide you north as if you're going to slide out from underneath the barbell off the top of the bench. However, since you did do such a good job with that setup, then your traps are gonna hold you in place. Those leg drive is going to go all into that bar and you're gonna gain 40 pounds into your bench almost automatically. Now, this has a lot to do with timing and you need practice and everything else, so definitely check out those tutorials, but this learning to use leg drive was literally a night and day, overnight difference on my bench press, just literally because I started using more of my body. It's definitely worth investing the time to learn, so I would highly encourage that you do so. The 9th thing that I would like to see you doing on the bench press is the bent over row. Now, I've been talking about this literally since I got involved in YouTube. I truly believe that your bent over row number should be just as strong as your bench press number. Now, I know a lot of people talk about closed chain exercise. Look, you can say whatever you want. Bottom line is, if you are that far imbalanced off, then you're gonna run into a lot of problems, okay? I would much rather see you get a stronger foundation to try to create some pressure and create some force in your bench press by having a thicker, wider, stronger back than not. Along with the fact that we live in a society where we're all constantly curled over in our cars, watch TVs, computers, telephones, everything. Just pulling your shoulders back is going to be a good thing anyway. It's going to keep you out of trouble in the long run. Trust me on this, do more rows. It's going to help your bench press incredibly. If you guys think about it, it's just like trying to squat with a thin stance, right? You cannot move nearly as much weight with your feet tight together as you can if you spread them apart a little bit. That's the exact same thing that you're doing by trying to broaden your back. Put on some muscle mass, put on some good slabs of foundation like I talked about earlier so that when you go to generate force, it doesn't wobble around and you get weak energy transfer. It all goes to the same place because it's all tight and you are good to go. Do your rows, trust me, it will pay off. The 10th and final thing that I'd like to see you doing on the bench press is to use variations when you get stuck. There are a lot of people who just believe that doing more bench press is going to be the answer, and I can't say that they are wrong. If you need technique work, then I highly believe that doing more bench press is going to help you a lot, unless you're just doing the same bad technique over and over and over again. That's not gonna help you out much at all. So if you have someone coaching you or looking over your stuff to make sure that you are doing correctly, then I think doing more bench is absolutely great. However, most of you are not in that situation. So what I would encourage that you do is use variations when you get stuck to help address your weak points. If you're having trouble with your lockout, you need more triceps, hit some close grip bench press or some pin press or some floor press, whatever the case may be, all right? Work those weak points, and plus it's going to give you time away from the regular bench press, because if you just keep trying to grind that thing into the ground, most of the time you get more frustrated than happy with your results. Also, something that I think has helped my pressing power incredibly has been the weighted dip. Now, I know a lot of people do not have healthy enough shoulders to do that. However, if you do, I would highly encourage you to think about using that also as a variation, maybe not as like one of your bench variations, but treat it very, very seriously and try to add pounds on that the same way you would any other big four exercise, and you'll be shocked at what that will do for your bench press. And the last thing that I'll mention there is the overhead press, because a lot of people do not get anything from the overhead press translating over to their bench, but then there are other people like myself and a lot of athletes that I work with that get amazing results on their bench press just by simply driving up their overhead press numbers. However, that might have something to do with triceps, because at the end of the day, no matter what the press is, having stronger triceps is never a bad thing. So if you can't do anything to make that bench press move, that overhead press move, whatever press move, always work your triceps, because you can't have strong enough triceps when it comes to pushing heavy things. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you today. Just a do or do not video for the bench press. I'm gonna be probably doing a couple of these covering different topics, so if there is something that you want me to cover, leave it in the comment section down below. I already started planning out one about pull-ups, one about recovery, one about social media. So just keep adding some things down below. Also, we are releasing some summer hoodies that are lighter weight in the Be Dangerous style with like some red lining inside the hood, as you guys can see here. So hopefully if you guys do want to pick those up, those are available at NEVERsateGear.com. If you guys want to pick one up, I really, really do appreciate it. If you guys need a program, like I said in the last video, I've got a little bit more time right now. So thank you to all you who have jumped in and taken advantage of that. But if you guys do need something, email me at NEVERsate@gmail.com. Otherwise, I will catch up with you guys later in the week. Until I do go out, do something amazing, realize, keep working hard, people. Be nice to each other. I'll see you then.